I am first.
Yo soy first.
I am first.
I am first.
Welcome to the 2020 First Game Jam, presented by WPI. I'm Manisha.
And I'm DJ. So if you've never taken part in a game jam before, it's kind of like a hackathon, except for creating a video game. Teams have a short period of time to make a prototype game. Now, these are awesome because you've probably heard of some of the more famous game jam games like Cat Lateral Damage, Goat Simulator, Celeste, Baba Is You, and The Binding of Isaac. So if you've heard of any of those games and you've played a game that started in a game jam. Now, what makes a first game jam special? That's a great question. Manisha, what do you think?
So this one in particular is pretty special because it follows the ethos and values of First. So shooters are pretty great games to play, but probably not for this one. So this game jam is going to be all about inclusion, friendly competition, and advocating for STEM. So game jams are a lot like the FRC season. You got a limited amount of time to build a project with a little too much scope. You could really do whatever you want, but you have to be tactical and really manage your project, manage your team, and have fun.
Now, I know a lot of you are excited and you want to kind of get the joy of the kickoff presentation and then just leave. It's probably not a good idea. So first things first, thanks to the WPI students for hosting this game jam. We've got some awesome things coming up. We've got panelists from the game industry to talk about how to create an outside-of-the-box video game and turn it into a real design. And also, we're going to have live Q&A with the chat answering your questions on air live today. So don't go anywhere, because if you leave, you're going to miss all that awesomeness. Now, I think we got something else awesome coming up. Yes, Manisha?
Oh yeah. Up next, we have a special message from First founder, Dean Kamen. Let's check it out.
Welcome, everybody. I am excited that we're finally starting the 2020 Game Jam. I'm also pretty excited that it's being driven by two institutions that I've had a long and great relationship with. Most of you know that I founded First more than 30 years ago, but a little bit before that, I spent the best 5 years of my life as a freshman at WPI. There I really got to appreciate the power of engineering, science, mathematics, what powerful tools they are if you want to go out and innovate and create real solutions to real problems. As I'm sure you're all aware, the world is facing some really new and very severe problems like COVID. And it's also interfering at the core with our ability to run our event-based programs at First. We canceled nearly 200 events this season. That's a terrible thing to deal with, and I hope we get past it soon. But in the meantime, the positive thinking, innovative people at both First and WPI have partnered together to help come up with what I think is a really exciting way to deal with this issue. We want all the teams to work on helping to create their own video games. Everybody likes video games, but there's something more fun than playing a video game. How about designing it, inventing it, creating it? And frankly, most video games don't have a lot of collateral value. A lot of them are really full of mindless, unnecessary violence or other things that I'm not particularly proud of. What if we could make video games that really represent the best of, for instance, First and WPI? What if we could make games that really demonstrate how gracious professionalism and how cooperation can be part of an exciting event? I believe that with the leadership of Lori Leshin and WPI, who has been with First from the very, very first year, and with the folks at First, if we can collect and get the best ideas of the whole First community focused on each helping to develop their very own version and their own very own vision for a video game, we could end up creating yet another effective tool by which FIRST is more scalable. The virtual aspect is very scalable. A way that FIRST can deliver its message more effectively to those around the world that still don't know who we are and what we do. And for the FIRST community, it can be yet another challenge that we demonstrate among ourselves, that if we focus our ideas and our technical skills on solving real problems, on creating real solutions, we're all going to be very proud of what we did, and we'll all make the world a better place. So this game jam fits perfectly as an example of how FIRST can react to a problem, turn it into an opportunity, and give us the capacity to grow further, to grow faster, to impact more people. And I can't wait to see what each and every one of the participants in the FIRST jam come up with, but I am sure it's going to be great, and I look forward to seeing it, and I look forward to seeing all of you, when appropriate, in person, as soon as possible. So let's do it.
It's always great to hear from Dean. Registration for FIRST programs is currently open, so that's FIRST LEGO League, FIRST Tech Challenge, and FIRST Robotics Competition. This year, FIRST is teaming up again with Disney and Lucasfilms for our 2020 to 2021 season, FIRST Game Changers, powered by Star Wars Force for Change. Our FIRST Game Changers season challenges us to revolutionize the traditional world of sports and fitness, innovating the way we play and move to reach our individual physical and mental health goals. Find out more information on FIRST programs at firstinspires.org/2021 season.
Now, many of you might ask, what makes a video game a blend of art and tech? That's the joy of it. Games encompass a lot of things. You've got visual art, you've got music, acting, writing, storytelling, and it also brings a lot of technical expertise in things like programming and 3D modeling. Game development brings both of these sets of skills between the technical side and the artistic side. It's kind of a skill in and of itself, so there's a lot to it, and it's a very challenging experience for most people who have it. Manisha, do you have anything to add?
It truly speaks to the power of STEAM. A lot of times we kind of tend to talk about STEM, but STEAM is truly powerful because science, technology, engineering, and math, all four very powerful and world-changing topics to think about. But once you add art in there, it's really just a beautiful harmony that really can inspire, a brighter, bigger future.
Definitely agreed. Now, it's almost time. Before we reveal the theme, resources available to teams in the website. First, gamejam.wpi.edu for all the rules, registration information, and training materials to get you started. If you're new to development, you can also join the FIRST Game Jam Discord server where WPI students studying interactive media and game development will be there for the entire jam to answer questions and offer help.
Now that we've got all of that taken care of, it's ready to announce the theme of this year's Game Jam. DJ, are you ready?
I have been ready this entire time. Let's go.
I'm super ready. I think all of our participants at home are ready. Let's kick things off. This year's theme is Cooperation.
I like it. I'm excited about it. Let's go.
Cooperation. It's about displaying unqualified kindness and respect in the face of fierce competition. It's about creating equity so the competition field is level. It's the philosophy that we can and should help others even as we compete. Those of you in FIRST have likely experienced cooperation in action. Your robot breaks, and another team is there to lend a part or lend a hand to repair it, even if it means they might lose that match because your robot was able to be fixed through their help. In other games, we see it too. You want to play a card that allows everyone to draw more cards. If you pre-plan this with an opponent to ensure a certain outcome, that's collusion, not cooperation. But playing a card that will help you, knowing that it likely will also benefit other players, that's more like it. Think about your favorite video game. You know the shortcuts and key combos because you play it every day. but it's your friend's first time playing and they're lagging behind. Cooperation means you show them some of the tricks you've learned along the way so they can make it a true race. You both have fun, and you've made the game better in the process. Those are just a few examples of cooperation, but what will it mean for your Game Jam submission? That's the real challenge. We're eager to see how you can create a game that celebrates or creatively incorporates cooperation into the concept, gameplay, story, or characters. Good luck, teams!
Now that you've seen the Game Jam animation, you can begin work on your game right now. Make sure to register at firstgamejam.wpi.edu. The key part, all submissions are due by Sunday, November 15th at 6 p.m. Eastern. Game Jam team leaders will receive an email with info on how to submit your games.
On Sunday the 15th, you can check out our closing broadcast where some of the WPI students will play your games live on stream here at twitch.tv/WPI Robotics. That starts at 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday the 15th. It's a great chance to relax and hang out after a hard week of work. Judging will be taking place in the next few weeks and awards will be announced on December 12th.
Been a great time here hanging out. Don't forget to stick around for the game developer panel in just a few minutes. I'm DJ Knight.
I'm Manisha.
Enjoy the Game Jam, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Whether or not you're on an
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the WPI First Robotics Game Jam. My name is Nick Parker. I am a graduate student at WPI. I will be moderating our panel for today. It'll go from 1 to 2. We'll be talking about topics like how to develop a basic idea into a fully fledged game in a short amount of time, given the Game Jam. And let's go ahead and jump into some introductions. We have 4 people here today, all veterans in the game industry. I'll go ahead and give you your name, and then you can introduce yourself, starting with, let's start with Zyba.
Hi, I am Zyba Scott. I'm a game developer in Boston. Been doing that for about 10 years. Call myself Pop Cannibal. Most recently made the BAFTA-winning Kind Words Lo-Fi Chill Beats to Write To. It's a game about writing nice letters, and I've made games about sailing and poetry and seating arrangements and all sorts of fun stuff.
Awesome. Next up, we have Chris Chung.
Hey, I'm Chris Chung. I'm a developer in the greater Boston area, where that's my whole life. Got various companies after graduating from WPI. First-person destructive cat simulator, cat lateral dance, which actually started as a Game Jam prototype, and I developed that into a multi.
Awesome. Next up is Ichiro.
Hey, I'm Ichiro Lamb. I'm a WPI grad, physics 1998. I am founder and president of Dejoban Games, an independent Boston area game development studio. I've been in the industry for over a quarter of a century and currently advise gaming startups, universities, and other organizations. Most recently of note, I was embedded in Valve's Steam team for a bit to help them establish an initiative called Steam Labs.
Great. And last but certainly not least, Carly.
Hi, I'm Carly Kastorik. I'm an associate professor at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. And I've made a bunch of different games, interactive fiction and role-playing games. I like telling stories. Most recently, a game I co-developed with a WPI graduate called Golden Mart is part of the Wordplay Festival in Toronto.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. Greatly appreciated by us at WPI and at First Robotics. Let's go ahead and jump into some questions. So I have my own questions here. We'll go through them, and then later in the stream, if we have time, we'll be taking some questions from chat. So feel free to drop them in there. Francis, who is our tech guy behind the scenes, will be grabbing questions and putting them in a Google Doc for me to read off of later. But starting off, first question. So like we said earlier, probably the starting point for every game jam, or not just game jam, but any game in general, is an idea. And then you have to take a basic idea like fight a dragon or explore ruins or something like that, and then develop that into a fully fledged game. So my first question is, what is all of your kind of process for developing a simple idea into a fully fledged game? And what advice can you give to our participants in doing that? I guess we'll just go down the list. We'll start with Zyba.
Process. Oh boy. Process and art sometimes aren't always, they don't sensibly line up. Particularly for things of a game jam scale, I find it very helpful to, rather than sort of trying to construct an idea out of whole cloth, to have these pinpoints, these restrictions that are these necessities. So it's more like looking at the stars and connecting the dots to create a constellation rather than just drawing on a blank canvas. And so if I need process to kick it off, the process is going to be part of setting up what are some of these boundaries, what are these limitations, what are these pinpoints that maybe my teammates are really stuck on or just seem like great opportunities. It would be really awesome to include in our constellation that we're drawing between.
Great. Chris?
Yeah, I think similarly to Zyba, I feel like when I'm thinking of new ideas, I try to think of what I want the player to experience first, like how they're going to experience that idea. And I think going further is picking up references as soon as possible, like what games is this similar to, what mechanics is this similar to, and how can I combine all those things into a way that's cohesive around that idea, and all works together and is fun in the end.
Awesome. Ichiro.
Sure, I think so. When Zyba's talking about how he creates these pinpoints that he follows, he's run a bunch of game jams, some of which I've been part of. And I think my favorite thing that Zyba does is he'll put a bunch of words into a hat, and then he'll run a 1 hour game jam where you basically pick 3 words at random out of a hat. But I think so I've done something with Zyba that started as a jam. It was supposed to be like a 7-day jam. And the objective of the game was explore something where you just walk to the right of the screen. And Zyba and I sat down in the cafeteria of our co-working space at the time. And he's like, what would be really neat is to do this and connect it to British Romance era poetry. And so for 7 days, we basically put this together and we drew things, and it just, it was us having fun. Because of that, we created a game where it's Elegy for a Dead World. You explore long dead civilization based on the works of British Romance era poets, and then you write about them. So it was a game that we basically just, created, with no sort of business goals in mind, but it started as a game jam and it launched on Steam several years later.
Awesome. And then rounding up, Carly.
Yeah. So I like Chris, I'm really interested in the experience the player is going to have. So a lot of times I'm thinking about kind of tone. So how does this feel to have this happen? I'm always interested in games that aren't necessarily competitive. I think competition's such a knee-jerk default, and I'm but I want a different world. I want a world where we work together and we're not mean to each other all the time, right? And so I think a lot about a story or what it means to feel alongside someone. I can actually show you this is the most recent game jam game I made. It's called Trick or Treat Simulator.
Yes.
And it's on the back of Trash from another game I made. But it's just a little storyboard, and I'm okay, you start at your house, right? Because that's how you trick or treat, and then you go to different houses and different things happen. But as I was making it, I'm it's for Halloween, it could be really scary, but it was there's a lot of kids that can't go trick-or-treating this year. What if they could play it and it's fine and it's not that scary? So the scariest thing that happens is you decide one of the neighbors is dressed as a vampire and you get nervous that he's a real vampire and you freak out and run home, but he's probably not, right? It never, right. Nothing bad happens.
He's probably not.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just moment of being a child and kind of the way we get scared of things because of the story we're telling ourselves, which is I could have put some other scary things in there, but I didn't, because I wanted it to be something that people could play with their 6 and 7-year-olds that are bummed out that they're not out getting candy,
Well, that's awesome. Great. So moving on to the next question. So this was kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, is the aspect of scope. So figuring out how to balance what you'd like to develop within your given time constraints and the specifics of your team's skills and abilities. So kind of in the same vein, what advice can you give on how to kind of plan development and stay within scope as you develop? We'll go same order.
Yeah, especially how long is this jam that we're going?
A week long, I believe.
What's that?
A week long, I believe.
A week long.
Starting. Yes.
All right, so pretend you have 2 days. Like, you can have really big ideas and really grand things, but it's the expression of them. You'd be surprised how much you can boil down the expression of a big thing to carry it through with just like a picture or 2 words or something saying, and this happens. You don't have to necessarily imitate this huge mechanic you saw in this favorite game you love to give a flavor of it, to give a memory of it, to sort of work these ideas into your into the flavor of what you're doing without executing the whole big thing. So look for ways to I don't know, homeopathic game elements or something, just like slight touches. They will matter. I don't know. It's going to be a big challenge when you get excited about your big dreams, but work hard on expressing them in just really tiny, concise ways.
Great. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like I could talk about this for hours, but
yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I think with any game jam of any length, take that time and cut it in half, and then cut it in half again, and plan to have something playable then, because I think it's much better to have something that's finished and playable that expresses the original idea you had than getting halfway there and being like, oh well, we ran out of time, right? And I think, like Zyba said, you can get an expression of that idea really quickly, like first day or second day, right? And then just work on making that better over and over again. Do some play testing with it, get feedback on it, so that you have something that's really cool at the end of the game jam. I think that's much more valuable than shooting too big and trying to take on these huge features and then coming up short at the end. I think that's in general. I think not even just for game jams. I think professional game development, that's a pretty good skill to have, is building small, iterating, and then actually finishing.
Great. Who's next? Ichiro.
Sure. All right. So I want to say that for a game like a game jam, even failure is success, right? You go and you do something for a few days or a week, and then you come out and you're like, oh, what have I learned? If you haven't learned anything, or if you don't go back and think about it, then maybe that's a failure. But it's okay to explode scope and to just fumble as long as you look back at it. I would do a couple of things. Number one, first day, at the end of the first day of the jam, if it's a 7-day jam, have something you can play. Because if you have something that you can play and it's at least a little bit fun, you're going to have something by the end of the week that's playable. If you wait until no, this is going to be, day 6, we're going to have this playable, it's going to be great. And then day 7, it's going to be, you won't get there by the end of the jam. And then finally, I think that if you can get halfway through a jam or whatever, and then sit back for like a half an hour, look at all your plans and say, look, what do we need to cut if we need to cut anything? And then work on the stuff that you can't cut. Then you'll get closer to where you want to be than if you sort of like, well, we could probably get it all in, and then you get it, you don't get it.
Yeah, I'm like a real plan. I like to have a real clear plan. So I often have a full storyboard or a full map. And I want to say I've never finished a game jam and at the end been like, oh, I should have done something bigger. I've never said that. And sometimes I've made things that were small and actually took less time than the jam, right? Like I finished it a few days early or something, and one of the ones I finished a few days early, it's a card game called Happy Ecosystems, and it actually won one of the awards at the IndieCade Climate Jam, right? Because it just worked really well. Like it was a simple idea, it worked, it was fine, it was done, right? And like sometimes that's great. Like I think sometimes we think we need to make things bigger and bigger, but in fact, like if you make something that's small and elegant and works well, like that's awesome. So I always say go small, and I always try and have a map of like where I'm going, because otherwise, like you get, it's like if you go out for errands with no plan and you end up buying like a bunch of weird flavored coffee creamers because they looked interesting while you were standing there. Like, don't do that.
Right.
I love that though. First of all, I want to be able to leave my house and go anywhere, and then second, like
That's fair.
15 flavors of coffee creamer sounds great,
Well, that's awesome.
but not for a jam. I agree with Carly.
Right. Yes.
Oh, I was just making that game in my head. 15 coffee creamers, the game.
I mean, I have 3 in my fridge. Don't judge me.
Alrighty. Next question. So kind of in the same vein, one of the biggest things that kind of always causes developers to kind of lose sight of scope a little bit is feature creep, which you'll come up with what you might think is a really cool idea in the middle of development. You start working on it only to realize that it's caused some of the more important aspects of your game to slow down in their production. So same kind of thing. What's some advice you can give on how to avoid that during development? Let's mix it up. Let's start with Carly this time. We'll go the other way.
Sure. So something I do when I have ideas that I'm like, what if I could do this? Is I write them down and I put it away, like physically away from me. Because then if I finish and I have time to go back, like great. Like in Trick or Treat Simulator, you can actually, there's like a Easter egg that if you have a certain amount of candy, this gate unlocks and you go and there's a Spirit Halloween store like in the game. And this, I need to fix it. There's a little bit of broken code there, but like basically you go in and they're like, didn't this used to be a Best Buy? Didn't this used to be like it's all the different things like it maybe used to be? But like that was totally just like a silly little joke thing where I was like, that'd be really funny. But I finished the entire game before I went back and did that, right? Because I was like, I could spend like an hour like drawing a Spirit Halloween store in Bitsy and then like it doesn't work and I don't have time to fix it and then I didn't finish a thing I meant to finish. So like I really like I can't emphasize enough how much I value working on paper and like keeping actual physical like notepads and things around, because I think sometimes it just gives you somewhere to put those ideas that you can then like actually put them away or know where they are to come back to. So that's one of the things I do is I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if, and it's like, maybe that's for the 2.0 version, just like put it away for now.
Great. Next up, we're going backwards. So Ichiro.
Nick, in my 700 years of game development, I've literally never been on time with a game. The jam I was talking about with Zyba that turned into a game, it was supposed to be 7 days. It turned out to be 18 months. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, that whole game was us turning something small into something big. So that's a different story. But I would say, as unsexy as it sounds, the most useful thing you can do is you spend 15 minutes at the end of each day. If you're doing a 7-day game jam, say that 3 times fast, and just say, look, let's plan this out. What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Plan it all out really, really quick, back of the envelope. And if anything just is obviously too much to do, then figure out what to chop. And, so same as my first answer is like, sit back, plan, that'll get you halfway. And if you figure out the other half, let me know, because I haven't figured it out.
Awesome. Chris.
So I spent some time doing a bunch of production and project management. So my answer may be even less sexy than Ichiro's. But I think, one of the benefits of starting small and iterating and getting a lot of feedback is that, when you put your very small game in front of somebody and get feedback, you can directly use that feedback as what you're working on next. So you could have 100 different things you want to do to the game, but if the controls feel bad, or if there's one thing that every player is getting hung up on, you can prioritize that as something you want to fix sooner, right? And if you're actively acting on player feedback to make the player experience better, and you just keep doing that over and over again, and prioritizing that list of things you need to do, the things that don't need to get done, fall to the bottom. Become nice to have. After you get, the version 1 game with everything that needs to be in it done. So I think, just constantly getting feedback and iterating, and then prioritizing the things that you want to do. Great way to make sure you don't start ballooning the scope. And I think also just knowing when your deadlines are, and like Ichiro said, at the end of each day, saying, how much time do we have left? What are the top 3 things we want to get done, and make sure you get those done before anything else. Great way to try to mitigate feature creep. I think there's always going to be feature creep because there's always cool stuff you want to put in your game, right? But knowing what absolutely needs to go in and what's a nice to have is an important thing.
Great. Saiba?
Yeah, I was just thinking, so maybe two of the main reasons I might feel compelled to add features to a game are one, is just such a cool feature. I want to add it. And like Carly was saying, great, write it down, put it aside, get it away from yourself. You don't have time for that. And another reason you might want to add things is you feel like it's a fix. You feel like, oh, what I've got isn't fun enough. It's not good enough. But maybe if I add this, then it will be better. And that's a long road, possibly. That's something that you can end up spending years piling up a whole bunch of little things until they finally all come together and your game works, but you were terrified for the 6 years you were putting it together because nothing ever actually worked. Maybe if you're adding something because you think your game, you just have to add it because your game's not good enough, reconsider the basis on which you're building your game. Look at that core nugget. You really want to start in your small game jam with just something small, tight, that stands on its own. Something like, okay, this was fun for me to poke a button at for 4 minutes. Its existence is worthy, and then build from there. But if that little core nugget isn't there and you're trying to fix it by increasing the scope, think about changing that center point.
Awesome. Great. So my last question, before we start taking questions from chat, is kind of general. Is just any other advice you can think of to give the participants, either game jam related or just game development related in general, since I assume a good portion of the people that are participating in the game jam are looking towards game development for their careers and for their future. So just any other general advice you can think of. So we'll start with Carly again.
So I actually I think about this a lot. So I have a full-time job that's like game adjacent, but it's not games 100% of the time, right? I probably spend like 15 to 20% of my day job working on games, and then I work on them at night. And I have like a kid and I have hobbies, and and I'm saying that because I think there's like a myth that to make games you have to like eat, sleep, and breathe this, and it's the only thing you do, and you stay up all night and like all these things. And like I guess you can do that, but you can also be like a person that like sits and watches like cult documentaries and makes quilts most of the time, and then like also works on games because it's fun. Like I think everything you do makes you like a richer, more interesting person. And if all you do is work on games alone in your room, like at some point, like you're not going to have interesting stories to tell or interesting experiences to share because like you don't understand the world and you don't understand other people. And I hate that myth because I think it especially pushes out people who, for whatever reason, aren't in the industry full time, either because they don't want to be or they can't be, or like maybe it just like actually is a terrible place to work or something. Like who knows, right? But I think there's lots of different ways to make games and lots of ways to participate. And like you're a person and you're important and you deserve to sleep and you deserve to like eat real meals and you deserve to spend time with people. And when you're thinking about scope, I would say like make sure you leave room for that too. Like you shouldn't finish the end of the week and feel like hot garbage because you didn't sleep all week. Like, and I know everyone like glamorizes this thing from college, right? It's like we wrote a play in 24 hours and blah blah blah. Yeah, that was terrible. Right? Like,
Yes,
it was
100%.
actually an awful experience at many levels. And like now with in retrospect, right? But like there's different ways to do things, and you can actually do things in a way that's kind to yourself and that's more conducive to building community and working together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as someone who's in, yes, I agree, Zaiva. As someone who's in school for game dev right now, I can definitely agree that that's something that is important for a student like me and my other students to remember while we're working, because it can get kind of hectic, especially right now. Ichiro.
Sure. So to take, so I agree with Carly 100%, and to take her answer, like a thread from her answer and continue it, working on other things, absorbing other things, taking time off from actual development makes you a better game developer. Possibly one of the most brilliant people I've ever worked with was somebody when I was over at Valve, and he would always come in with something that he had read from outside of game development, be it, a philosopher or some weird economic theory or something like that. And he would start talking about it, and then he would tie it back into the problem that we were working on. And it was always a fascinating and very impactful thing that he had to say that he took out of games. I think one of the worst things that we do as designers, as creators in the industry, is we put blinders on. We're like, I am doing a first-person shooter, so I'm just going to play first-person shooters. No, go outside and throw twigs at each other, or if you're creating a first-person shooter, go watch a bunch of movies that have nothing to do with combat, right? And you will come up with something that's more interesting and perhaps has a greater appeal than if you were to just sort of immerse yourself in what you're doing.
Awesome. Chris?
Yeah, I think Carly and Ichiro kind of stole what I was going to say and said it much better. So, I think, definitely leave time to sleep, especially during a game. Think, 48 hours, I'm going to use all 48 hours. However many hours, 7 days. So I use all that time to game. Like, you should use maybe half that time and spend the other half, resting, because that's actually going to make you more productive in the long term. And it'll make you happier at the end, so you're not feeling terrible, when you're crossing the finish line. And I think also going back to what something I thought of what Zybo answered the last question was kind of finding that core nugget of your game. I think one valuable path, especially at the beginning, is try to develop a fun toy first. Something that doesn't necessarily have any gameplay or any goals or anything, just something that's fun to play with. Because that's a good starting point to start adding more gameplay framework on top of it, and then adding all those other cool features that you want to add as well. So I think that's general good game jam practice that I can offer.
Awesome. And Zybo, finish up with you.
So game development, game jams, even when you're a solo game developer, it's still sort of it's a team sport, because you're interacting with people and your ideas in the world. And I think a game jam in particular is a great opportunity to grow your abilities and your self-confidence by putting your ego aside. It's very easy to walk into a game jam thinking, well, I've already got this idea, or I want to be the one to have the idea, or it will feel good if I lead this, the thing I want. And I think you're going to find the whole experience to be a lot more satisfying if you treat it more sort of as an improv yes and situation, where you say, someone says, I want to make a space epic, and you're thinking, all I ever wanted to do is make a game about haircuts. And so you don't say, no, I want to make a game about haircuts. You say, yes, and this is a space barbershop. Boom. Your ideas together are so much perfect than either one, right? So look forward to that opportunity to let go of your first thought. Let it go, let it mix in with other people's, or even if you're totally leading stuff by yourself, when you bounce your ideas off other people, be ready for them to come back changed and accept those differences, because this is a short period of time. And if things go wrong, I mean, jam didn't go wrong, just like things didn't end up where you wanted them to, but you still, you're going to achieve your goal of participating in a jam as long as you open yourself to that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for answering my questions. Let's go ahead and start taking, we have about half an hour, so we'll start taking some questions from chat. I have a doc here. Let's see. Okay. All right, first question. What is your least favorite video game or type of game, and why? We'll say anyone can start.
That's putting us on the spot. Can I know?
Fighting, it's so boring.
Say again?
I hate fighting in games. It's so boring. Like, it's so boring, and I'm not even bad at it. It's just boring. Like, I've been playing the Fable anthology reboot thing with my friend. Like, we get on the headset and we play at the same time and then wait for each other and stuff. And we were at an arena fight last night. I'm just like, God, I hate everything about this the whole time. And she's like, but you're getting through it faster than me. I'm like, but it's so boring, right? And I don't know. I'm like, if I wanted to push buttons angrily, I would just write emails to the newspaper or something. I don't know,
That's true.
Least favorite game? What is like, you know, so it's funny. There are so many games. There are 30,000 games on the Steam library alone. So if I hate a game, I will stop playing it. I will potentially refund it and I will move on to the next thing in my library. So it's kind of like I don't, you know, it's kind of neat that like my least favorite game can be your favorite game and I'm okay with that. So it's kind of like I know it's a non-answer, but it's the answer that I can give.
No, that's fine.
I guess I have a similar non-answer in that, like, especially like looking at reference games for whatever you're making. There's obviously like, you know, the cream of the crop, you know, the best game that, you know, is in that genre or in that space. And then there's, you know, the ones that aren't as good, but both of those have value, right? So even when a game is terrible, like you can play that and analyze and say, what makes it terrible, right? And, you know, learn from that. So I think, I don't know. I feel like I don't have any games I absolutely hate. Or I guess there are games that I like, but I also hate at the same time, or I hate that I like them or something. But I think, yeah, like it shows that every game that you hate is something. You know,
right.
Yeah, I can. There's a real difference between I could hate my experience playing a game. I could imagine making this game would just be misery. I have no interest in making it. But if the game has enough to it that it rose my emotion to the level of hate, there was some sort of craft or artistry applied into it. Even if it was applied towards evil, there's something,
right,
some sort of human achievement in there to pull those emotions out of me. So to purely hate everything about a game, I don't know, it'd be a real trick because I respect the anger it inspired in me.
Well, somebody in the chat says, guess you never played Dead Cells, and I think that's a perfect example. I actually didn't like that game, but if you look up on Steam, about 3 million people loved that game, or at least, you know, 3 million people have played the game and 90% of them loved it and 10% of it hated it. So, you know, I'm okay hating something everybody else loves or vice versa.
I think that hits on an important thing too, though. It's like, first of all, like I always respect the work that went into the thing, right? Like it's not like, oh, I hate this because you're incompetent and you're lazy or something. Like that's not right. Like I always know that someone spent a lot of time on that, and there's no reason to be like a huge jerk to someone else that's trying their best. You know, like there's just not. But also, I think there's no game that's for everyone. Right. And so probably about a bunch of people heard me ranting about fighting games. And I hate fighting games. It's so boring. But like a lot of people really like that, or it wouldn't be in so many games. Right. Like that's and like so there's people that like that's the only part of the game they want. Right. And so it's worth really thinking about like who your game is for. Because when you say it's for everyone, you always end up making a game that's like for people like you. And you end up with games that just like look like video games, which isn't very, you know, like innovative. But yeah, like there's different games for different players, just like there's different movies for different kinds of movie viewers.
Yeah, awesome. Let's see. Next question from chat. What do we have? Okay. What's a good size for a game jam team? Lots of people, or only a few, or one?
Not one. Because you can do that on a non-game jam team. Right. And I think that like the worst things I've ever done on a game jam is to just work alone because then I get my ideas done. I always get great ideas working with anybody who's like, especially folks that I don't know. Right. We might not always get along, but something new and interesting and different is going to happen. And, you know, you got to remember the point of a game jam isn't to create a game necessarily. It's to create a finished game, to create a perfect game. It is to work on the craft of creating a game. And if you can do that with other people, you'll probably learn more than if you do that by yourself.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah, it helps if the trick of growing your team is what is each person doing? And that is, as Achiro was saying, that's part of the craft of working on a game is figuring out how you're being productive with these other people. So if you see a team with a clear path of like, well, they're doing music, I'm doing programming, and actually, these two other programmers, we have confidence that we know how we're going to interweave. So yeah, we can do 3 programmers. And sound effects person. You know, if you can find, if you can coordinate these people, if you can get a project manager on your game jam team, I know that sounds like the kind of thing like you get a big company. No, those can be great for a game jam. So if you can be smart and respectful about the roles people are playing on a team, you can grow it until it collapses under its own weight.
Didn't we have a social media coordinator? This is it was a joke jam, but we had a social media coordinator for our 1 hour jam.
Who was separate for our PR person? Our social media person got banned on Twitter for being too active in that 1 hour.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious and fun. And we had someone made our press kit page. And yeah, there are all sorts of wonderful roles if you approach things lighthearted and be like, no, I'm not doing this to professional quality. I'm doing this to just experience it. There are just so many weird angles of making games and pushing games and communing about games that you can participate in during a jam.
Awesome.
I think that's really nice in terms of thinking about what people can do instead of what they can't do. Because I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm not a programmer, like I can't make a game. And like, that's so not true. And it's so nice to bring in people with different skills and backgrounds, and you get really interesting things out of that.
There's just so many things you have to do. I think, even somebody who can, help organize documents, some project management, check in, make sure right? Like that's helpful. If people aren't up for plenty of tasks that you need to get.
Great. Alrighty. Any other thoughts, or do we want to move on to the next question?
Sure.
Alrighty. Let's see. Next, what's the coolest concept you've ever found in a game that makes you think, I wish I thought of that?
Wow.
I know I can think of, infinite examples.
I think for me, it's Gone Home. I love that game, like, a lot. Like, it's so beautiful. And I teach it pretty regularly, and one of my students played it, and they summed up like what I love about that game. And he's like, I thought it was a horror game, and I kept waiting for there to be monsters, but then it was about a dysfunctional family, and that's worse, right? And I think it was like, it's so smart because it really is a horror game, right? But like the horror is completely pedestrian, everyday, nightmarish experiences that many of us have, right? And I just I found that so moving and so effective, and that kind of like playing with genre is just so brilliant.
I agree. Gone Home is a fantastic game.
I want to say, I shouldn't be talking about this because it is something that a colleague of mine is doing, but the core idea of his game stems from things that happen in the game world are sourced from things that happen in the real world. For example, the weather report in Boston would change your in-game, whatever, not weather, but something else. The number of political Twitter posts over an hour would change the way that such and such economy worked. The share price for wheat would change this other thing. And I just think that's such a great concept. I wish I had thought of it myself.
Very cool. Anyone else, Chris or Zyba?
I feel like I'm always mad at Rocket League because the concept is just so simple. I spend way too many hours yelling at that game, and I don't know. It just feels like such a good idea that was executed very well.
I don't know, often when I see a game idea that's just so amazing and wonderful, it's also usually, it reached me because it was paired probably with an execution that was really good. And I just don't imagine myself having it end up the same way if I'd had that idea and that execution. So yeah, I'm jealous of it, but it's not generally this thought of like, oh, that could have been me. I could have done that. It's like, I would have probably ended up somewhere very different with that, but I love what they did. So it's,
and that's okay too, right? I mean, so that's the beauty of game development and design is that two people can have the same starting point for the exact same idea, and you put them on it for a month or a week or a year or whatever, and they'll just and create two different things.
Cool. Let's see. Next question here. So this is great. This is kind of going off of the theme for the game jam of cooperation. How is accessibility and inclusion important in game design, and any tips for making games more accessible? Start with anyone who'd like to speak up, I suppose.
I know one like the like low hanging fruit thing is to make sure you're using colors that people with color blindness can actually distinguish. That's a huge problem in lots of games. You'll have like text that people can't read because the color contrast isn't right for them. And there's actually lots of great resources for that, of just finding different palettes that actually are highly accessible. So that's like an easy one to start with.
Yeah, like for example, in our last game, we color coded some of the icons, right? And so these like various resources for a city builder were colored red and green. And what is it like? Is it 1% or 5% of the population have color blindness, and therefore they weren't able to distinguish between the two things, and therefore we added iconography to it, and I think hopefully that helped. But imagine just not being able to play the game because you can't see distinguish between two colors.
Right. Yeah. I know one example I can think of off the top of my head. Last of Us 2 did a great job with accessibility in terms of color, not only just color blindness, but hearing impaired, having the controller vibrate in a certain way when you're near an interactable or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty hard for a game jam just because of the time limits, and I feel like
Sure.
Like it's awful because a lot of the game engines don't support like a lot of these standard accessibility options from the get-go. So a lot of this you have to build from scratch. Like controller rebinding is a great example, right? Of like something that every game should have, right? So that anybody can play with their the settings that they want or they need. But it's something that takes a long time to build, because there's no real good standardization across it. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of settings like that I wish we could do in a game jam or in release games that it just takes a lot of time. But I think similarly to The Last of Us, I think like the newest Spider-Man game had a lot of good settings, like not even just controller mapping or color blindness, but even just like difficulty settings and those sort of things, just to make sure that literally anybody could play the game the way they wanted to.
Super excited about Miles Morales, but
yeah, I think it's just a good point about. I mean, difficulty is an accessibility thing in a lot of ways, and I also just find from a design point, there isn't. I don't think there are too many reasons not to just spread your game open, the content open. If people give people an ability, you can define all the challenges you want to go through, but I don't think it hurts your game any if you just give people the opportunity to like, no, I'm not interested in this challenge. I'm interested in your game. And I just want to skip this part or go to there. I don't see a lot of value in trying to create some point of pride of like, you must jump through these hoops to experience any of my content. I don't think you're doing yourselves any favor as someone who's making something and trying to share it with people by forcing that. Because if people want that challenge and you set it up, they're going to take that themselves. You're like, no, I'm not going to hit the cheat button. I love this game. I love the challenge. I want to do it. And I don't think you're going to rob them of that challenge by opening your game to easier ways for people to access the joys of it.
What game did that tremendously well was Breath of the Wild. Now, there's a game where that is a gamer's game. It is highly systemic. It is like lots of combat, lots of hey, I'm going to go role playing. It is a game that I played over the course of 80 hours. And my wife, who predominantly plays point and click adventure games, went and started playing it. I'm like, well, this is first of all surprising. It is incredibly welcoming, but she is not she's not a console, a gamepad gamer, and she picked it right up. And somehow they were able to make that game satisfying to me, a lifelong gamer, and to my wife, who had never played through a game with a gamepad. And I think there's it's not surprising that is one of the most popular games in the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Nintendo does a very good job. Awesome. Let's see. Next question from chat. Is there a game you made that just didn't do what you want or failed, and how did you bounce back and learn from it? I know that I can think of a lot of examples.
Never failed making a game repeatedly.
Zyba has moved into the second half of his room.
I mean, I think for me it's iteration, right? So I've never had a game like fail at the end. I've had like ideas for it, or like we started something and we're like, that doesn't work, right? Like it's just, and sometimes it's like the wrong format. It's like, oh, we thought this would be like a tabletop role-playing game, and now it's like a web-based interactive fiction game because like the experience we wanted people to have doesn't work, right? And so I think it's just keep messing with it, it'll turn into something.
Or you should stop. I mean, there's like, I've started prototypes. I'll be like, spent days on this. Oh, I've got this idea, and it's sort of like you're starting to tell a story, like, oh, and this person goes here and there. Or even if it's just physics mechanical, a story. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make this thing with this, and then the duck will end up on top of the roof, and then I don't know. This isn't going anywhere. I shouldn't spend the rest of my life trying to get the duck off the roof. It's just, all right, we're done with this. That's a totally respectable path to find yourself having gone down and just.
I would say that half of the things that we attempt fail for whatever reason, and we have to cut them. Now, that's not so bad because a lot of what we try is like, short form game jam stuff, but we have done multi-year projects. I brought Chris onto one of them, which we had to axe because I was not getting the design down, and I was trying something different each week, and we, did it this way and that way and the other way. And it was one of the most painful things I had to do was just sort of like cancel the project because like, what do? Do you keep working on it for another 3 years, or do you set it aside? And if you set it aside, like you can always come back to it. But if you keep working on something, you sort of, you're digging yourself into this hole and you lose sight of it and what's fun about it. And it's you just start like eating beetles in the dark. Well, I don't know. So it's as Iva says, it's not a bad thing. I think you said this. It's not a bad thing to kill a project.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, in kind of constantly evaluating your game and having people play testing it, like knowing, if there's a sense that it's not going anywhere, knowing how to cancel it sooner rather than later. Because you could spend several months on something, and then be like, oh, I feel like I wasted all that time that I could have worked on 3 other projects, right? But I think even when you have something that fails or something that you cancel, like there could be parts of that you can use for future projects, right? Like you could do, I feel like there's all these articles of like, the company that made Fall Guys made like 130 games that didn't succeed right before they made Fall Guys, right? I think there's a lot of examples of that, maybe not at that scale, but a lot of prototypes that you've done where, that particular idea didn't come to fruition, but there's, a mechanic to it or an art style or something that you can pull into your future projects. So I think every project that you cancel or, every prototype that fails, you can build onto that to make something better eventually.
Sure. Great. Let's see. Next one. Okay, this is an interesting one. What age should a game jam game appeal to?
Yes.
I agree with Cybo. Why?
No.
No. No, don't appeal to any.
No, it doesn't. Carry on, Ichiro.
I don't know. I was going to say, like, I don't think there are any wrong answers. It's like a game jam could be anything you want it to be. And like, so, as like, I think the game jam, this particular jam has rules, but, when you, different jams are going to be different things, right? So if you're doing a game jam around Children's Hospital, it should probably be appropriate for children. But like, your game could be specifically aimed at like people who are 100 and above and have never played a video game before. It could be people who are like, like I want to, I'm in my late teens and I'm entering college and that's kind of scary. I want to make a game for that. So your answer is going to be the right answer to that.
Alrighty. Let's see. Next one. How do you figure out the direction to take your jam game? Do you throw ideas up and pick a good one, or is there time to explore a couple ideas on the first day?
There's time to discuss a couple ideas generally. I mean, to be careful when you say explore, be like, all right, I'm going to go off in a corner and spend, 4 hours programming this thing, because you're both, that's a bit more costly than maybe talking it through and doing it on paper, but also you maybe feel you've done some investment in that game that now you're wrongly clinging on to, be like, well, I got 4 hours worth of code, so maybe we should push this one further. I would think about ideas, talk about ideas, paper ideas, move little figurines around. Role play with other people, voice, before you invest too deeply in working on an idea.
Anyone else?
Well, like, a game, absolutely, game jam. I love the idea of no wrong answers. So let's say that you have 3 people who all love the idea of doing Zyba's space haircut thing. Do that. Right? You don't need to explore anymore. If you have a bunch of people who are like, no, I want to do, Carly would probably not do, a Tekken-derived game, but maybe there is something that has to do with the theme, because Chris loves Tekken. I don't know if you do. You love Smash, right? Yeah, fair enough. But that also takes it in an interesting direction. There's probably like, a Venn diagram. There's probably an intersection of something. So, like, if at the end of an hour I'd say that everybody's unhappy with each other and nobody knows the answer, then maybe you should be a part of another team. But again, no wrong answers. For like, do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think
it's
similar to.
worth-
Oh, sorry, Carly.
Oh, I think it's worth thinking about it, like, kind of from another direction too, of like, what do you want to get out of, like, maybe instead of saying like what you want to make, say what you want to learn or what you want to do. Because sometimes I'm like, well, what I want to do is learn how to use Procreate on my iPad. That is a thing I've not made time for, and I need to spend some time on it, right? Or like, I want to work with Bitsy. I've never worked with it before. Like, those are things that I could apply to like almost any project. So it just depends on kind of where you position yourself on the team and how you think about what you're getting out of the jam.
That's such a good point. Asking people what they want to get out of it is such a good point.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think similar to Zyber's point of not investing too much into an idea in exploration is, it's a game jam. It's a short amount of time. Like, as long as you have something that people agree upon, like, just hit the ground running and roll with it and see what happens, and try to build that idea as quickly as possible. And then, if after a day, that's not fun and there's a better idea, like, kill it. do the next idea, right? And at the end of the day, it's only a week, right? You have plenty of time to do plenty of other game jams, plenty of other games. So I think thinking about what you want to learn, as opposed to what project you want to come out with, I think is a great way to kind of decide or kind of focus on what you work on.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. We got time for maybe 2 more questions, 2 or 3. Let's see. Next one. For a jam, should I try to make something totally unique? A lot of great jam games are so inventive. Not sure I can do that.
I'm sure you can, but I'm also sure that you don't have to. Like, again, as Scarlett said, if it's about what you want to get out of it, if making something unique isn't number 1 on your list of things you can get out of it, there's so many other things to get out of it. So I wouldn't stress about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I feel bad for giving the answer of no wrong answers, but like, the stakes in a game jam are so low. You are not, this is not your job. This is not something that if you fail at, then you're going to be, fired, or you're going to not be able to eat, or you're not going to be able, you're not going to be let into college. Like, I think a game jam is a nice way, as Carly said, you want to learn something. So if that's your objective, that's great. And also, if your objective is just to try something new and to be, really insanely creative and experimental, now's the time to do it, because like, what's going to go wrong? Like, you'll learn a couple of things, and then your game might not be a complete, polished opus magnum, and that's fine.
Yeah, I guess as somebody who had made something unique in a game jam that was moderately successful, I will say, yeah, I think during the game jam, I had to go, just finish a project in a week, right? Learn a little bit more about Unity. The goal that I had was not, make something crazy, awesome that, is going to make a bunch of money. I think I don't know if that's a great way to go into a game jam. But yeah, I mean, I think it ends up happening that way, specifically in game jams, because it's, like a chair says, like anything, you can do whatever you want, right? It's, I think you come up with some cool ideas given that short time frame and given the themes or whatnot. And then the fact that, you can act as if it's a throwaway, you'll do things that you might not normally do, right? So I think that just tends to happen organically, but I wouldn't say that should be your goal of the game jam.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great. All right. Last question before we wrap up. Second to last question. So similar to my question earlier, is there any final advice for our game jam participants, especially those who are entering their first game jam?
Be nice. Like, that always sounds like such trite advice, but like, people will remember how you treat them and they will help you or not help you based on that, right? And like, you don't know who is gonna have opportunities or connections that you might want later, and they're not going to give them to you if you're a jerk and you're unpleasant to work with, right? And like, always just start by paying it forward. Don't go into anything expecting things from other people. Just like, show up, do your best, be nice. Like, worst case, you don't make the game you thought you were going to make, but you have like a pleasant experience with some people, and that's great, right? Like, that's the best you can get out of life on any day, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of ego in game development, and I think that gets sometimes that's rewarded, but more often than not, I think it gets bred out of people because you have to work with each other. Corollary to that, I don't know how it's going to work. I assume it's a virtual game jam. Don't quote me on that, but like, if you can get to know some of the other people, your team isn't the only group of people that you are allowed to meet during a game jam. If you wanted to spend 5 minutes sharing what each of you is working on, like, group A and group B talk to each other, they might have some neat ideas for you. And, it's a nice way to just sort of meet potential new friends because, folks that go into the industry are the ones that you meet now and get to know them now.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It might be harder in a virtual game jam, but yeah, like Ichiro said, if you can set aside some time to play other people's games and have people play your game, like it's much easier in a physical game jam because you can just kind of walk over to someone and say, hey, here's a game. But I think that's always super valuable because it's easy to kind of put the blinders on and just work on something straight for 7 days, right? But I think if you have something that's playable early on and you can give that to somebody and get, basically any feedback is valuable, right? It's something you can act on during the game jam. I think it's also just fun to see people react to what you made, and then when at the end of the week when you have a more finished product, you can see them say, oh, I remember this game, this was cool, you made it so much better, or you fixed all the things that I thought was bad, or whatever. And just getting that feedback is awesome.
It's super exciting to see works in progress though as well, right? Like if Chris is working on something and I'm like, and he shows it to me midway through, I mean, like it's very easy to say, oh, I want to show this only when it's done. But like a lot of people find that sort of the process interesting. That's why we're in game development.
Yeah, I always love seeing other people's art because I'm not much of an artist. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so cute, right? Like, and it's just like, I don't know, it's so nice to see people excited about their stuff, and that's actually like, I think especially right now when we all feel really isolated, like it's so nice to have those moments of like sharing and connection and like appreciation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think my favorite is like when a sound designer comes over and he's like, oh, here's a song I'm working on. And like me knowing nothing about music, I'm like, this is the best song I've ever heard. Like, you did this in like an hour. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say the end product is meaningless, but so much of this is an excuse to exercise the art and engineering of that games afford. As games has no other multidisciplinary medium pulled together, this is a chance to swim in it, experience it, see how you fit in it, see how you and other people relate to each other in it, and that's really the big part of this experience.
Awesome. Well, great. Last question, completely random. I'm assuming this is a reference to something and first that I'm not aware of. But can you do a backflip?
Why do I feel old not knowing what that reference
I'm
is?
not sure.
Or is that just a thing? Because either way,
Like, is it a real question?
Oh, there we go. Oh,
Double.
dude, you're gonna hurt yourself. You look like you're.
Chairs on wheels.
That
We're
was
good.
the most. Wait, was my answer to that is no. I think I tore an abdominal muscle running the other day, and therefore I will do nothing.
No flips.
No. I did recently look up if adults could learn how to do a cartwheel because I never learned when I was a kid. And the answer is technically yes, but you should not. So I will never know how to do a cartwheel. That's what I learned from that.
I want us to all have robot body. Actually, wait a second. This is the first robotics thing. Can we get robotic bodies? If so, can I get it from the folks that are watching this? Thank you, please. Yeah, we're gonna do a backflip for you.
Yep. Up to it first, robotics. We want exoskeletons. Oh boy. Alrighty. Well, that concludes our panel for today. Thank you guys so much for being here and talking to all of us. Thank you, Francis, for running the stream behind the scenes. Thank you to everyone in chat who came and watched. We will be going over to our Discord server. If you are not on our Discord server, go ahead and join. There's a link on the WPI First Game Jam website that you can get to. These four fine individuals will be on the Discord answering any other questions and things you may have. But that'll conclude us. Good luck to all of our teams on their Game Jam. And this is us signing off.
Bye.
Goodbye.